All right, welcome to part 3 of this series on how to organize your code in SwiftUI. Let's go! So here we are in our project right where we left off in part 2 of this series. If you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, jump over there really quick, watch those, and then come back. This is part 3 of how to organize your code a little better in SwiftUI. Now, this video is about names and folders, and this is the third and final part of this series, unless I come up with some other thing that I suddenly want to add. But as far as I know right now, this is the third and final part of this series. So, names and folders. Let's start with names. So, first of all, how I name my view structs. So this one, for example, people view. Now, some people might not want to put the word view at the end as a suffix, but I prefer to do that because then when you look in your project navigator, I'll go ahead and press Command 0, open up our project navigator, you can see right off the bat that it's a view, right? If it just said people, you wouldn't know exactly what it was right off the bat. Like what if it was a protocol or something like that? So I prefer to put the word view at the end of my views like that. And the next thing I like to do is always do Pascal casing on my structs. That means start the word with a capital letter and then every word after that starts with a capital letter. Now that's pretty across the board with programming, like any classes and structs, they start with a capital letter. But I just wanted to clarify, I always do that. And the other thing is, I always use camel case for everything else, like this. Camel case is starting with a lowercase letter, and all the words following it start with a capital letter. If it's a struct or a class, start it with a capital letter. And for variables and things like that, start it with a lowercase letter. So I've got my computed property here, starts with a lowercase letter, and my function here starts with a lowercase letter. Now that's kind of across the board too in programming. Now, another thing with my reusable view components, I have a more general name that I give to them. So header view, for example. This isn't only going to be used in people view right here. I'm planning on using it in other parts of my app. So I want the name to be a little more general use like that. So header view instead of something like people header view, like I mentioned in part 2, right? I don't want it to be specifically for a single view. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is folders. And I'm actually talking about Xcode groups, but I don't want to confuse the name of this video with SwiftUI groups. Actual Xcode folders are a different thing. So let's jump over here, Command-Shift-J to jump over to the file we're currently in. Now, what I'm going to do first is highlight any views that I've created, like a full screen view, like people view. But directly connected to that is people view model, because that is specifically for people view. So I'm going to hit Command and highlight people view model as well. I'm going to right click and I'm going to select new group from selection. There we go. Puts those two files I highlighted into a new group, and I'm going to call this views with a capital V, just like that, because those are my views. And you might be thinking, well, what about the header view? I'll get to that now. Let's highlight header view, and I don't have any other views I've created like this. Now, I like to call these types of views components. And so we could go like this, right click, new group from selection, and I'll say view components, like that. So now any view components that can be used across several views are all in that folder. Now if you decide to just call it components, like this, then it might be a good idea to nest it inside of views. Because then you've got views and you've got your components of your views. And if you want to get a little more advanced, which isn't part of this video, but just to mention it, you could create a completely different module for your custom views, and then you could import that module in whatever file you need to whenever you're using one of your custom view components. Now, if you end up having several different screens about people, so we'll go to a people view. Let's say you had a people details view or some other people view. It could get pretty large, like the amount of files you have related to people. So it's also a good idea to select any files related to people like this and make a new group with that selection and you could just name it people. Now this is especially helpful if you're working on a large project with hundreds of files, because this will keep it nice and tidy, especially if you go like this and you right click and you say sort by name. Now mine are already alphabetized, but that's what it does, is it sorts it by name. Keeps them nice and neat like that. Now that's it for this series, unless I suddenly have something else to add in the future, but I hope you liked it. If you did like it, if you liked it, like it. If you liked it, then consider subscribing. If you loved this, if you just so much loved this, consider subscribing. Do it. All right, I hope you liked this, and we will see you later. Thanks for tuning into this series, and we'll catch you in the next one. See ya.